Hello, I'm Blake Lang, Professor of Physics and Engineering at Southern Adventist University. I'm recording this on the lightboard studio I've been setting up, and I'd like to share some things I've learned in the hopes that will help you in your teaching. Even if you don't have access to a studio like this and are just trying to make it through another day of teaching online, even if you're trying to do all this from home. Let me plug in my iPad, just like I'm walking into a classroom, to share something to the projector. Here we go. In university physics class last week, a student asked a question in her pre-class reading about how to interpret this figure describing the propagation of a longitudinal wave. Imagine a spring at equilibrium with a coil spaced 1 centimeter apart, and imagine that we were to give this spring a pinch. Now that pinch is a displacement of these different coils. The coil that was here has been displaced at 1 centimeter, and making this bigger, the coil that was over here has been displaced -1 centimeter. And so this is an example of the lightboard technique on a digital tablet that you probably already have. But there's just something magical about doing this on a physical lightboard. So we want to make a graph of displacement of each of the coils at 1, 2. This is the lightboard technique, and I wanted to start by showing you that you can achieve the same effect by simply drawing on the tablet you already have. I'm just presenting a PowerPoint slide that has a black background, and whatever is black becomes transparent. What you are seeing is a scene composed of my computer graphics in this window and my webcam in the larger window. A lightboard is like a whiteboard, except more engaging because everything you present is in between you and your students. You are gathered around the items of interest, face to face. This is the lightboarding technique, an enabling technology. How did I get this transparent image? Well, it's just a black background image. And I'm using what's called a luma key, I learned, to make everything that's black become transparent. But wait a minute, aren't most textbook figures white though? Yes, and this is just a negative image of the figure that came from my textbook. I have a whole folder of white background images that come from my textbook publisher, and I just ran a script to make negative image copies. You can do this in Photoshop or from the command line. There's lots of ways you can do this. I'll show you how to do this yourself. Come on to my office. OBS Studio is all about scenes and sources. I'm going to add a source, a video capture device. It's my GoPro. Here, I also could add my Sony camera or my Canon camera. Many modern DSLRs are now webcams if you plug them in. And there it is. I was amazed at how easy it was to get OBS Studio up and running and to get such great results. I'm going to right-click on this and click on Transform, Flip Horizontal, because every one of my scenes I'm going to want the camera to be like a mirror image so I don't get myself confused. I'm going to rename this scene, and then I'm going to make a couple other scenes, and it's easy to switch between them. How about picture in picture? Okay, and then I'm going to add another source, a window capture, and how about a browser? There's many things that we do that are on internet browsers. I'm going to add another thing, another window capture, because I want to show you something. I want to show you how to set this up on a Stream Deck. There it is. Right-click on Only Me and duplicate it. I'm going to call this Smarter Board. On the Stream Deck, I can go to OBS Studio and find these scenes, drag them over. The first one is going to be Only Me. I'll call it Picture in Picture. So now on my Stream Deck, I just press buttons. And it switches between these scenes. Isn't that great? No hotkeys. I'm not going to do hotkeys when I'm trying to teach. Under Smarter Board, I'm going to add a video capture device. Now I'm going to add my tablet. If you have a Windows PC, I would recommend an HDMI capture card. AirPlay is a best effort service, which means good luck. Okay, my iPad is there. That's what it's called. Now, I want to make black transparent. Okay, so let's go to the iPad and click on Filter, Add a Filter. This is a Luma key filter. I want black to be transparent, so I'm going to increase the minimum until the black turns to gray. Do you see that? So that's how I have things done for a physical lightboard. For what I'm doing here, I'm going to make white transparent. So let's change this Luma key. You only need to decrease it to 0.99, and I find that it's good to have a little smoothing, so I do 0.2. So now white is transparent, and what's cool about using OneNote is I can select different pens of different thicknesses and colors. I have much more control than over PowerPoint. Put yourself in the shoes of a remote student trying to engage with a synchronous online class through the small screen of a phone or tablet. We need to make the most of that screen real estate. The default options are probably not so engaging and therefore far less efficient with data usage as well. That's a real issue. Now put yourself in the shoes of that student who's trying to escape their noisy house. Maybe they don't have Wi-Fi at home. They need to go somewhere to get internet access. Imagine how nice it would be if what you provide for them is available as a podcast. And so a couple design concepts come to mind here. And the first is immediacy. That's how I think about it. Immediacy. Immediate literally means nothing between. When teaching my physical classes, instead of plopping my computer down on a desktop designed for sitting at a desk, I bring in a tablet on a stand. And so immediacy requires us to think about how can we rearrange the physical setting that we interact with our students in. So I'm not looking down at something, but I can keep my focus on them. Well, in the online classroom, immediacy helps me think about how can I get more how can I make this more like a face-to-face interaction? My recordings are not as good if I'm not talking to a live person. Sorry. They do better if I can see my students live in gallery view right over there. Again, that's immediacy to me. I like to be able to read their reactions, hear their voices. I'll wear earbuds for that reason. And I like for them to be able to see my full body expression because we like to teach with our hands. That's what we naturally tend to do as teachers. And AV design should take into account the natural ways in which human beings communicate. It should feel natural by design. A guiding question I have for lighting is, can they see the color of my eyes? And this lighting isn't the best. I need to look for a better way to diffuse this lighting. The other concept is accessibility. And what we record for students should be designed for consumption, designed for small screens. For earbuds, let's pay attention to sound quality because it's going to come in their earbuds. And also, I think it's important to provide a podcast format, and you might have ways to do that with little effort. So can you zoom with this? I did notice my students were squinting, trying to make out some details. Zoom will compress the video they see, not the video that's recorded. And so for me, this is the perfect combination of accessibility and immediacy. If a student opens up my OneNote notebook on their computer, what I'm writing is being transmitted to them in real time and in vector format with zero loss of fidelity. So even if they have a slower internet connection, what I'm sending to them, while it may look cool over video, Zoom is going to compress this and make it look terrible, but it will be perfectly reproduced in their notebook for them to be able to see. If they have visual impairment, they can make it bigger. This has a lot of the advantages of a lightboard, but for live presentations, it is not throttled by Zoom. A lightboard works based on total internal reflection. A strip of LEDs is around the edges, sending light in from all sides. We put some additional LED strip lights around the side, and that's our only lighting, and that's the only light on in this room. Something that's becoming important to me is the concept of being able to produce live production with appliance design, for lack of a better word. I'm liking this Elgato Stream Deck because I can program these different buttons to do different things. For instance, I can switch between these different scenes or switch cameras live without any post-production, because whatever I record live, that's what's going to ship. I've also got some buttons here for things that I do in Zoom, like switching cameras, sharing a screen, asking everybody to unmute because I'm about to ask a question, recording. If there's a Zoom bomber, there's probably a number of things that I want to do. I can advance my PowerPoint slides. So the point is, whatever you tend to do in the classroom, the things that tend to be difficult, maybe there's a way to make a button for that. I know that adding this extra layer of live production might seem like it's just too much, it's too hard to do. But once it's set up, using it can be as simple as pushing buttons on a kitchen appliance. If technology leaves us teachers feeling flustered and embarrassed, then it hasn't been designed well for classroom use. But there's something we can do about that. When we switched to online this semester, teaching with this live production setup was actually a huge relief. And I felt like Mr. Ray in Pixar's Finding Nemo, exploring with my students in a way that was a little more like the natural ebb and flow of teaching in a large classroom. Only that, while the screens and technology between us has at times been a barrier, with thoughtful design, a teaching studio can result in a front row experience for everyone. So teachers of the world, I hope this is helpful to you in some way. We're all pulling together. Nobody signed up for this, but you are making a difference in the lives of your students, and thank you for what you're doing.